Leaf came about through a merger from a listed company called Aquacarotene with an unlisted company in Queensland called Pharmacule. Pharmacule had some technology that genetically modified plants, and that was trying to put enzymes into sugarcane so it could be part of a biorefinery process. The reality was the current pre-treatments, steam explosion, etc., too high a temperature for those enzymes, and so we started playing and looking at other pre-treatments. And that's where we started going down the glycerol route, because one of the things glycerol does is reduce severity in the whole operation. The whole biorefinery process is fairly complex, and there's a number of parties needed in the whole chain of events. So many of those companies are complementary to what we do. But there are other pre-treatments around there, and by pre-treatments, that's the breaking down of biomass into the cellulose, hemicellulose and lignin. And we have a significant advantage over those other pre-treatments because of the efficiency and the ability to deliver the end product at extreme low price. We're producing cellulosic sugars at under $50 a tonne after we allow for co-product values, whereas most other ways of obtaining sugar, either from natural sugar, from cornstarch or through other pre-treatment processes, are over $200. It's a significant advantage when you're trying to replace renewable chemicals into the petroleum chemical chain. You need to have a really cheap feedstock to help compete with petroleum-based chemicals. I'll ask the second bit first. The strategy to monetise is to licence the technology, but also be involved in JVs. We basically are only ever going to make money if we get a project up and running. So whether that's with a licence fee or whether we're part of that project, we need a project to happen. So the strategy is to try and make projects happen, and we're looking at advantage situations around the world. The economics of doing a biorefinery project are very attractive. We've calculated on standard conditions of well over 80% after-tax internal rates of return for a chemical process. But if we can get advantage situations, i.e. cheaper biomass, which is a big cost, or be able to reduce the capital from greenfields, then that's hugely advantageous. So we're looking at processes that we can do where we have that advantage. We've signed an MOU with Monaghan Mushrooms and Monaghan Biosciences out of Ireland. They have some really interesting enzyme technology that works well with our cellulose, but more importantly, they are the second biggest mushroom grower and therefore the second biggest compost provider in Europe. And that compost could provide a really good base for a biochemical project. And we're also looking in the paper industry. Newsprint mills are going out of style, out of business, virtually every day of the week. And the attraction to us of that is there is a biomass source. There's a whole pile of kit in place that we can use. We just really need to modify the paper making process and put in our chemical process. So it's a significant reduction in capital. Biomass is your big cost. So you want to utilise the biomass to the maximum. So you just don't want to get the cellulose sugars, the C6 sugars out. You actually want to get the other parts of the biomass out in value. So getting the hemicellulose, the C5 sugars out as a separate stream is really important. But also, given biomass has a fair bit of lignin in it, getting the lignin out in a form that is a much higher standard than just let's burn it for electricity, that you can actually use it down a chemical path, is massively important. But our big breakthrough came at the end of June this year when we announced that not only were we going to recycle the glycerol, which is a big part of our process, but we could actually recover it at higher purities. So we buy cheap glycerol from the biodiesel process, unrefined. It does all the heavy lifting in our process, and we can now recover it at higher purities we put in and therefore higher value. So that's what really drives our economics down to producing sugars at under $50 a tonne versus every other rival process at over $200 a tonne. And that's what allows us to be able to say we can replace petroleum chemicals, because the sugar cost in most processes is around 50% plus of the costs. So if you get that cost down, then you really do have a chance to go in hard against the petroleum chemicals. Well, we're already working towards a number of projects, and really it is the bringing of these projects to line, and we've become pretty much a project company, and it really doesn't matter if it's through the licensing or the JV route. We're about getting projects up and running. So we're looking at the standard project line, which is pre-feasibility, feasibility, and working towards the bankable feasibility, so these are financeable projects. Again, as an example, if you use our MOU with Monaghan's, we have a really good source potentially of biomass, we have our process, we have the Monahan enzymes, and now we'll be looking to add to that the companies that can take the cellulosic sugars and convert them, and also add in the end takeout by a chemical company. I mean, the great thing about renewable chemicals is the big chemical companies want it to happen. They have objectives that by 2020, 25% of their sales will be renewable. They're just waiting for a good, cheap source of cellulosic sugars and projects to get up and running so they can fulfil those goals. So we're hopefully going to bring a couple of those projects to the table in that time frame.